He is 7 feet 4 inches tall, 22 years old, and the most physically dominant basketball player on the planet. Last summer, he shaved his head, put on a gray robe, and went to live with monks in a mountain in China. The NBA had absolutely no idea what to do with that information. Neither did anyone else. What Victor Wembanyama did in that monastery, the rituals, the silence, the 4:30 in the morning runs through pitch-dark forests, was reported in pieces, leaked in photos, whispered about by analysts. But the full story? Nobody put it together. Until now. And once you hear what actually happened inside those walls, the thing he did during the national anthem at the NBA Finals will finally make complete sense. June 2026, Madison Square Garden, the NBA Finals. The eyes of the entire basketball world are on one player, not the champion, not the MVP, but a 22-year-old from France, who, before the first game even tipped off, stood during the American national anthem with his arms crossed over his chest. No hand over the heart, no movement, just stillness. Social media ignited within seconds. Conservative commentators called it disrespectful. Others defended him. He's French, they said. It's not his anthem. President Donald Trump was asked about it aboard Air Force One after Game 1 and weighed in. The NBA stayed silent. The Spurs stayed silent. ESPN stayed silent. And Wembanyama, characteristically, said nothing. Then, before Games 2 and 3, he simply didn't show up for the anthem at all. If you've ever done something that confused everyone around you, and stayed quiet about it because you knew they weren't ready to understand, you already know exactly what energy this man was operating in. Because what looked like controversy to the outside world was actually the final visible expression of something that had started 12 months earlier. Inside a monastery on a mountain in China that most basketball fans had never heard of. This is that story. To understand Wembanyama, you have to start not in San Antonio, not in Paris, but in the way he has always moved through the world. Quietly, deliberately. Like someone who has been thinking about things at a different depth than the people around him. He arrived in the NBA in 2023, already unlike anything the league had seen. 7 feet 4, a wingspan that defied measurement, the footwork of a guard, the instincts of someone who seemed to see plays 3 seconds before they happened. Analysts ran out of comparisons almost immediately. There was no template for what he was. But here's what nobody talks about in those early scouting reports. Wembanyama was always as interested in the interior world as the exterior one. He has spoken about mindset, about awareness, about the mental dimensions of basketball, in ways that sound less like an athlete and more like someone who has been studying consciousness as seriously as they study film. In a league dominated by noise, social media, endorsements, narratives, he moved like the noise wasn't there. Most players build a brand. Wembanyama, even at 20, seemed to be building something else entirely. Then came February 2025, mid-season, and a diagnosis that stopped everything. A blood clot, deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder. At 21 years old, in only his second NBA season, Wembanyama was shut down, not for weeks, but for the rest of the year. The surgery was successful, but the message was clear. His body, extraordinary as it was, had limits. And the recovery period that followed was long, uncertain, and, for someone built entirely around physical excellence, quietly terrifying. Stay with me, because this is where everything changes. Most NBA players in that situation go to a beach, or a recovery facility, or their hometown. They rest, they rehabilitate, they wait. Victor Wembanyama went to China. His agent, Bauna Ndiaye, had spent months researching unconventional approaches to physical and mental recovery, martial arts masters and forms from China, India, and Japan. After everything he studied, one destination kept rising above the others: the Shaolin Temple in China's Henan province, founded in the late 5th century. Home to warrior monks who had been training the same forms of kung fu and meditation for over 1,400 years. Ndiaye flew to China first, scouted it himself, then called Master Yan An, a 34th-generation Shaolin warrior monk who had previously lived and taught in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and who spoke English fluently. The question was simple. Could the master train one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet? Master Yan An agreed, and what followed was 10 days that, by multiple accounts, changed everything. Wembanyama arrived and did something that almost no celebrity, athlete, or public figure does when they enter a sacred space. He committed completely. He shaved his head. He wore the gray robes of the monastery. He ate the strict vegan diet of the monks, no exceptions. He slept on 3 single-size beds pushed together to accommodate a frame that was, by a significant margin, the largest the temple had ever housed. And every morning at 4:30 a.m., and before sunrise, before the rest of the world woke up, he ran. And this is where everything changes. The training wasn't designed to make him faster or stronger in ways basketball could measure. It was designed to change what was happening inside. Master Yan An told him, "You play basketball and I do kung fu. If you want to be great, you have to do things that other people can't do." There are 2 parts to climbing the mountain. The daytime is for your body, your endurance, your strength. The nighttime is for your mind, your awareness. Here is what the 10 days actually contained, and this is the part most coverage completely missed. The runs were first. Starting at 4:30 a.m., Wembanyama would run through the forests near the monastery or along an uneven hillside track, doing frog jumps, sprints, and one-legged hops uphill and downhill. Balance and stamina, teaching a body that had always relied on its extraordinary natural gifts to find a different kind of strength, rooted, low, internal. Then came the Shaolin 13 fist form, one of the 2 foundational forms of kung fu built around efficient weight shifts, stability, and the kind of explosive precision that only emerges when the body and mind are working as a single unit. And then, the hardest part, meditation. Multiple sessions per day, each lasting up to 90 minutes, sitting cross-legged, in silence, with 100 monks, not moving, for a 7.4 man whose body has been trained since childhood to move, to react, to dominate space. Sitting completely still for 90 minutes is not rest. It is a different kind of war entirely. But here's what nobody is talking about. One night, Master Yan An took him on a hike, in total darkness, no lights, up a mountain path where, according to the master himself, one wrong step could send a person tumbling down a steep staircase in the pitch black. Most visitors take daylight to navigate it. Wembanyama did it in darkness, in silence, trusting the path beneath his feet that he couldn't see. Think about what that teaches a person, not physically, spiritually. Wembanyama completed a route that normally takes 7 to 8 hours in approximately 4.5 hours. The monks, who had trained on that path for years, reportedly had to push to keep up. When he came back from China, he was asked about it on The Shop. His answer was 3 sentences. "My goal going there was putting my body through things it's not used to doing and allowing my range of movement and strength. This was probably as very different as possible from what I'm used to doing." And then, characteristically, he stopped talking. He came back with something, though. Those close to him described a different quality of focus. Quieter, more deliberate, like something had been resolved inside that didn't need to be spoken. He also came back, by his own account, fairly convinced he might be Buddhist. He said with a smile, "I'm pretty sure I'm Buddhist now." Which, if you think about it, is either a joke or the most significant sentence an NBA superstar has said in years. Maybe both. Now go back to Madison Square Garden, June 2026, the national anthem. A man who spent 90-minute meditation sessions in silence with Buddhist monks, who learned to walk a mountain in total darkness without fear, who was taught that power comes from inside, not from performance, not from display, stands during a national anthem and crosses his arms. Not as protest, not as statement, as stillness. As the thing he learned to do when something is happening around him that he doesn't belong to. The same stillness he practiced in a monastery. The same position he held for hours on a hillside in China at 4:30 in the morning. His coach, Mitch Johnson, said it plainly when pressed. There are plenty of players who are not on the floor during the anthem. I don't know if that's habit, superstition, bathroom, whatever it may be. But those who watched Wembanyama in Game 2, where instead of crossed arms, he stood with his eyes closed and his hands together, visibly in prayer, saw something different. This was not a man being careless or rebellious. This was a man who, depending on the night and the ritual he was in, was somewhere else entirely, somewhere internal, somewhere the cameras couldn't follow. Most people saw controversy. What they didn't see was a monk playing basketball. The Spurs lost the 2026 NBA Finals. They blew a 29-point lead in Game 4, one of the largest collapses in Finals history, and never recovered. Wembanyama finished the series with numbers that, in any other context, would be considered extraordinary. But championships are not given for numbers. And yet, the story that lingered wasn't about the loss. It was about the man, the crossed arms, the shaved head in those viral photos from China, the night hike in total darkness, the 4:30 a.m. runs, the 90-minute meditations, the quiet during the anthem. Master Henan, speaking to ESPN during the playoffs, said something that stayed with everyone who read it. Power comes from inside. I would look at him and say, "You are not a cat. You are a tiger. For power to come out, you have to change the inside first." The inside changed. The outside is still catching up. Victor Wembanyama is 22 years old. He has a blood clot in his medical history, a monastery in his spiritual history, and a finals loss that, by every account, will make him more dangerous, not less. What he did last summer was not a publicity stunt. There were no cameras invited, no brand deals attached, no social media posts during the retreat. He went to a mountain in China, shaved his head, and sat in silence with monks for 10 days because something in him understood, at 21 years old, recovering from surgery, that what he needed couldn't be found in a weight room. The Shaolin Temple was founded on a principle that is almost 1,500 years old, that true mastery of the physical begins with mastery of the internal, that the body follows the mind, that you cannot build a great warrior by training only the muscles. In a league full of players who optimize everything, sleep schedules, nutrition, three-point percentages, social media presence, Victor Wembanyama went somewhere no algorithm could reach. He sat in the dark. He breathed. He climbed a mountain he couldn't see. And he came back different. If you are in the middle of something right now that your training, your routine, and your usual tools can't solve, let this be your permission to go somewhere unusual, to sit still when everything tells you to move, to look inward when the noise says, look out, to climb the mountain even when there are no lights on the path. The most physically gifted player the NBA has ever produced decided that none of it was enough and went looking for something deeper. He found it in a monastery, and now the whole world is watching to see what he does with it.